Tower of God is an anime based off of a Korean manhwa about this big tower that seems to encompass most of the world and has people of all different species living in it. And everyone's goal is basically to get to the top of the tower because whatever you want, you can find it at the top of the tower. So this girl named Rachel is one of the few people from outside of the tower, and she breaks into the tower to climb to the top because she presumably has lived her entire life in a literal cave, and supposedly you can see the stars from the top of the tower. And so our main character, Bom, enters in the tower because she's the only person he's ever really gotten to know, and he basically obsessed with her, and so he enters the tower to go after her. I mostly gained an interest in Tower of God because I had heard about the character of Rachel and how she's super hated, everybody hates her, and I've heard the amount of hatred to this character get compared to Griffith from Berserk, and I was like, wow, that's a bar. I wonder what caused that. I now know what caused that, and let's just get this right out of the way. I love Rachel. I think she might have become my favorite character. I know that's super controversial, but I kind of love her for the same reason everyone hates her. I think the strongest aspect of Tower of God is its cast, in fact, because it has such a large, diverse set of cast members, all with their own powers and abilities, all with unique, very visually diverse appearances, interesting personalities with their own backstories, their own hang-ups, their own goals. Well, okay, technically everyone's goal is to reach the top of the tower, but they also assumedly have supplementary goals, right? And so it's just this large, interesting ensemble cast that honestly the whole show spends basically the entire time slowly developing. In fact, the only character I would say I don't like is Bom himself, who to this point is just sort of generic, boring, good guy main character. Speaking of the diversity of the cast, however, that's another thing I kind of love about this setting is one, they have like multi-species characters in this, and the tower itself has some really interesting environments in general. Like there's the whole like lore about the tower and the sort of like mystique it has, and it's the seemingly like gigantic monolith with all different people, all different cultures, each seemingly having its own thing going on. So great setting as well, and the show is so visually appealing, not just from like a character perspective, but also from like a background perspective and some from shot framing. Very, very pretty, very aesthetically pleasing. The show is also filled with symbolism. A major reoccurring bit of symbolism is the energy, I forget what it's called, basically manifesting itself as water, and then you have the floor guardians being giant fish, often portrayed as being oceans. And they also mention like other sort of like oceanic fish, right? So there's this huge like water fish theme going on with the story. No idea what that's about, but it's very readily apparent. And also a lot of symbolism with the character of Rachel. She goes by the pseudonym Michelle Light, along with her like sort of like lighthouse abilities. She has this like symbolism with like stars. She is associated with stars wanting to become a star, which invoke the idea of like Lucifer, the light bringer, the morning star, and also a betrayer angel. So she has this sort of like betrayer Lucifer symbolism going on with her, but I also appreciate the name Michelle, which is of course derived from Michael, the archangel who cast Lucifer from heaven, and means who is like God, which of course also works with Rachel casting Bom from heaven, or I should say the tower in this case. So a lot of interesting symbolism going on here. I'm still not fully sure what it's working in service to. Maybe it is just a surface level as I just talked about, but there's definitely some clever writing going on in Tower of God. Sometimes, though, I would say that the show is getting a little too clever for its own good, because the number one thing holding back this show is kind of the amount of plot lines it handles. There's a lot of establishment, and it manages to set up all of its characters very well, but this entire season feels like a lot of setup. There's so many plot lines running, mostly concurrently, and it doesn't necessarily become overwhelming, but it makes the season feel very unfocused. Like there's too much going on, and we're not spending enough time with some of the more interesting plot lines. It would have been, I think, better to spread the plot lines out over longer periods of time. Like, there's like 16 plot lines running. We could have done with 8, is what I'm saying. It feels a little busy. And partially because there's so many things going on, it also kind of feels like nothing's going on because it's just all set up. And like the bulk of this season is based around the tests to just get to like floor 3, right? That's the whole thing. It's just a bunch of tests. And there's like 5 tests. And we spend a lot of time on these, and it doesn't feel like anything is particularly getting accomplished. So despite having 1 billion characters and 1 billion plot lines, it ends up creating this sort of glacial pacing. Still, like I said, there's a lot of likable characters, and I love the setting, and it did end on a cliffhanger, so I'm very excited to see where Season 2 is headed. Twitch and Discord in the description. I've been Sacrobolic, your Envoy of Hope. Bye-bye!